Hey, buddy.
Right.
Hey, mate.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Still here.
Oh, still,
Ticking along.
yeah.
How about
Survives
yourself?
Christmas. Yeah. I mean, I'm also still here and ticking along. It's been an interesting start to the year. I've got a footsie trade on that I don't really want to be in, but that's where we're at. But
Okay, I got nothing. First day in front of the charts, mate. Me.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's good for you. I mean, you're good because you actually take a proper break, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I just get right away from it.
Yeah, I think that's really good. It's funny for me though. If I do that, I find that I it takes me longer to kind of get back in. I have to
Yep.
kind of like keep like just dipping in just little bits and pieces. Just doing what I can.
Yeah, it
Um,
makes sense. But I
yeah,
mean,
but
you're more on the fundamental side of things, so it really doesn't matter too much for me.
yeah, it's a little
Because
bit of the fundamentals, and also I think my trades probably need just that that sometimes they need quite a lot of management as well, which means I've
yeah,
got in a way stay sharpish.
yeah. Well, I should have managed the euro trade a little bit better than I. Well, no, not really. Um, I had 2/3 off the table, so it couldn't lose.
Yeah.
I've got no idea what happened last Wednesday. What happened last Wednesday?
Last Wednesday,
That,
what happened to
that
the
big
euro?
crazy day. Well,
Oh,
what
this
happened?
one
Everything.
here. Uh, that was Friday. This was Friday. Oh, this one.
Yeah, what happened?
Um, do you know what it might have been? It might have just been because it was the start of the month.
Don't know. Everything went crazy
Yeah, it did,
from
didn't
what
it?
I can see, anyway. Well, just opening the charts this morning, and I did see that the euro trade that I was in was stopped out. But that's all I took any notice of, really. But I thought, wow,
Was that
that's
a
a bit of a
trade that
move.
you had in the market from quite some time ago?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's good. So you managed to stay in really throughout Christmas, and what were you doing? You were just kind of like going to see how it went.
Yeah, I just left it there because, as I said, we'd already closed 2 positions on it, and that
Yeah.
was all good. And I thought, well, if it goes, we might as well be in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much back where it was anyway.
Yeah, do you know what? I've got somebody I know who trades the euro, and they just swing trade it. And I looked at this, this chart actually not on the hourly, but I looked at this chart from a swing trader's perspective.
Yep.
Could probably do with that being a bit cleaner actually. And I don't know how you decipher, what's going on here. The only sort of area that made a little bit of sense to me was probably this zone here, that there, because but even then, there was a horizontal level kind of across there, or you could argue a little bit lower. But even then, it dips down and kind of fires about a bit and comes and tests a lower trend line. It just I don't know how people trade this recently. I don't know how that those trades have been going. But they seem to have done really well.
Oh, okay, that's good. What, over Christmas
No, I mean
or
this
just in general?
just in general. I mean this was since November.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, they only swing trade the euro, and they seem to make well they do them they make a lot of money out of it. And this is the only chart they trade is the euro dollar. That's it.
Yep. Well, I used to be the same.
But I suppose evidently, certainly sort of like from the evidence that they've shown me, it's all you need, isn't it? You don't need
Well,
one.
I'd probably still be the same if it wasn't for these shows. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably trade just the euro.
Yeah, I think that's all you need. Well,
Yeah,
for my strategy anyway.
it
So
is kind of nice to focus just on one, isn't it?
it is very much so, and I wish I were there. But
Yeah,
you, know,
I think especially
you
if you're
pick
looking
up
at
everything.
multiple time frames, because if you're looking at multiple time frames, you just want one chart up really, um, and all the different time frames in different windows. But if you're looking at I don't know 3 or 4, it just even adding an extra one, it's just You got to kind of like keep flipping your charts over.
Yeah, and really, if I've got two or three screens on one cross on a different time frame, as you say, it makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the end of the day, most of these crosses, certainly on the majors, they move in harmony anyway.
They do. Yeah, they do.
I mean,
Absolutely right.
They're not totally correlated, but there's not a whole lot of difference really at the end of the day.
No, you're absolutely right. So you do you have a nice end to the year though, mate? A good break?
Yeah. Nice, mate. Yes, very nice. It's great just to not have to do something. Just one task that I don't have to do during a day. Because there's still watering to do here, and there's still we've just put in another week of earth moving, just planting more bamboo on our own land. So that's a major change in the topography here.
Yeah.
Our block's changing all the time. Now I've got to put irrigation in for all that and plant all the plants. So never a dull moment.
Yeah. So is
I'm trying to do an online store as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm looking at just getting different bamboo products from around the world.
I suppose it makes complete sense.
Yeah, unique stuff rather than that's what in Bali. That's why I didn't do the automation thing. We were out looking at bamboo things.
Oh, I see. What designs or different types of bamboo?
Well, different things, like different artisan products.
I see. And the good thing about that is you don't have to hold the stock, do you?
Well, you don't, but it depends on who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with an artisan, which is primarily what I wanted to do, yes, you would have to hold the stock because they're not business people in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And do you remember Putu, the driver?
Yeah.
Well, I've got him on board. He's scouting for me.
Oh, brilliant!
Because he took us around to the places that I wanted to see. Well, not all of them, but it was impossible to deal with the people because language barriers and figures and talking money and all that sort of shit. So we said to him, how would you like to go and scout for us and negotiate, etc. So he's happy with that.
Oh, brilliant. And I suppose he gets a cut, so he's going to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really good, mate.
So win-win.
But it's still quite a long way off, is it?
No, it's just a matter of me putting the store in place, I suppose. And that technically, I've got to get it sitting there on my website. I've got to get publicity out. I've got to do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at internet marketing gurus, buying shit off them as well. So
right.
Yeah, it's very time consuming. Very time consuming. So,
yeah.
It's not like I've been sitting back all the time doing nothing. I've been still working on those sorts of projects.
Right.
Which I'm now very heavily involved in. So, trading for me at the moment is just turn up, do the shows, and that's it. I don't.
Yeah. Well, I continue to be all over it. I mean, do you want to talk about some charts? I suppose we should really.
Are we on?
Yeah. We're always on, really. Now, let me see what I've got here.
Well, I'm sure the thousands of people in the room were interested in that bamboo.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's imperative to their existence, I would suspect.
Of course. Well, we'll start buying bamboo one day on the...
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go.
I need... that
so where are you? Where are you in terms of FTSE? What's going on?
So this is the thing with the FTSE. I mean, it's taken off. So actually, let's look at a daily chart. I was a bit gutted because there was a really nice trade. Oh God, I don't want that one. There was a really nice trade on the FTSE that I was waiting on. Actually, I was waiting on a pick down here, down here. Now I'm looking at the futures, but it was the same on the cash as well. Same down here, and this was the entry bar here. That was the bar there, and it hadn't really it hadn't really convinced me that it wasn't going to kind of come back a little bit further. The price I was after was this price initially, and if I can bring in, actually, let me do it like this instead. That's it. No, I don't want that one. I want one with pivots.
Pretty decent ascending triangle there that I can see as well.
Oh, let's have a look. Let's delete that and delete this. I don't like these indicators on my hourly chart at all. I don't know why I haven't saved this properly. Delete that and delete that. And then what I want to do is save this actually. Hourly with pivots. 1 hour. Pivots. Okay. So this is the slightly tricky challenge with the FTSE, because the futures are really the kind of kid brother of the of cash, and you know, looking at this daily pivot, that was a decent place to try and get in. He didn't quite touch the daily pivot, which is the first thing that kind of put me off the trade in the first place. But the other thing is that there's this lower line here. In fact, there was two really. There's one there, and there was one here. And my ideal scenario was for it to come down, touch the daily pivot, and really get a lot closer to this trend line. And that was going to be just I thought that was a real sweet spot down there.
Yeah.
So I was waiting on that, but I did see this, and that was another entry, but I ignored it because of the lack of the test of the pivot and the lack of the test of the trend line. And it took off. It did take off, and that's just one of those things. Now, I did go short on cash, but when we look at this, it's not going to be easy to kind of remember the absolute patterns here. But if you can kind of remember that there's this extension bar here, and then the monthly pivot, that's going to help. Because when I then change this to the cash charts, the pivots are in a different place. Yep. The pivot on the futures were up here. The pivot was here. So I tried to take well, in fact, I have gone short of this pivot. Now I'm still looking for this to come back down and test this pivot. Not because I think that we're going to come lower necessarily. We may, but I'm actually not interested in this trade to the downside anymore. As soon as it took out that pivot, I think this pivot is going to probably provide some pretty decent support. Now, what's interesting about this is if we also look at this, we got this extension bar, and then this bar, which is the bar that kind of touches the monthly pivot. Now, if I switch back to futures, that brings the futures down near, not quite on, but near the daily pivot. And I think that's a much more interesting area to look for a long. So what I'm looking to do is probably liquidate the short at this point, and if it can come down to the daily pivot, that'd be even better, because I'm in this area basically. I'm short in this area. So if it can come down just a little bit, then I'll liquidate the short, and then I'll look for the long instead. I was looking at the news overnight, and on Friday, I don't know if you're aware of what happened, but on Friday, Jerome Powell was kind of cooling down the rhetoric of rate hikes, saying that he's listening to the market. I
actually saw a newscast on that. I was looking at the PBS Hour, I think it's called, which is a newscast out of the States for some reason, and I was just flicking through channels and found him sitting on the screen. And I thought, oh, okay, this could be interesting. And I heard that exact speech.
Yeah. Oh, you heard the speech, did you?
Well, partial. It was not the entire thing. It was only a news grab, out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't actually hear the speech, but I've certainly read and seen the result of
Yeah.
that speech. I mean, well, the thing that is really interesting with the FTSE is that, you know, it has taken off. Jerome Powell has helped things out. China have had a little bit of tax reform, also to aid the shrinking economy over there. And also, we've got this week we've got trade talks starting with the US and China starting today, actually. So there's a chance that this rally would not only hold but probably go further. So I am looking for the long. But the difficult thing really with the FTSE is that I have to switch this back to a clean chart because the pivots are horrible on a daily. But when we look at this on a daily chart, the difficult thing is that this is still in a downtrend. So the only way that the pattern that is emerging, or the most obvious pattern at this particular point, I mean, we got kind of trend lines all over this one as well. We got a line up there. We've got this line here. Or it may even be that the line is there. It probably is actually more accurately a little bit lower because that's that didn't close. So there's these lines there. There's this horizontal level here. There is obviously a horizontal level, but just a little bit lower as well, or maybe even near where we sit. You know, it might even be that low there. So the difficult thing is that this is in a downtrend, and the bears are looking for that better price to get in. You know, they didn't really want to get in down here, so the bears are looking for a better price to get in. But what's looking a little bit more evident now is that what could happen, there's so many different things that could happen here, but what could happen is that we do actually pop up, and I'll show you why I don't like the pop-up in a second, but we could actually pop up somewhere around there, or even where we are, and then pop back, and that give us a decent entry to the upside, because then we're talking, you know, reversal pattern, a nice clean reversal pattern, a decent inverted head and shoulders, where that means that we can try and pick it up on this right shoulder. Now that's the preference, but the question is, do we go short? You know, where does it go short first? Because this is a huge extension that we've seen. But that could carry through today, you know, with nothing changing on the news front. This line might even be a little bit lower as well, maybe even there. You know, that could change on the news front. We might end up with things switching around and us not getting the pop forward, or it might be that the bears are quite happy now to start shorting the market again, because things haven't really fundamentally changed. There's just some rhetoric that sounds like it could cheer up the market a little bit.
I was about to say that's, well, looking at the chart, the first real positive thing that we've seen for some time.
Yeah.
And you're putting that all down to Powell?
No, Powell, China, and trade talks. Because Powell coming out did well. In fact, NFP started it. NFP started the run to the upside. Then Powell came out, and that was a further boost. Then China have said that they are easing some of the taxes, and that carried it further through. So I think it does take multiple events to actually create a bar like this. It's not just one thing, unless somebody says something absolutely you know, stand out, which Powell didn't really. He just said he's listening. That doesn't mean there's going to be no more rate hikes. It just means that he's listening, and that's, you know, that's all we can really surmise from that. So no, there are those.
That NFP number was massive, wasn't it? Wow.
The NFP number was really good, and that really did start things off. And the interesting thing is that the FTSE had been trading to the upside in its morning session for a few days, but the states had been quashing all the rallies. And really what it needed for this to happen, what it needed was for the US to follow on. You know, it was no good of the UK market opening up and people buying up, but there was a lot of accumulation going on, but it wasn't able to catch a bid. I mean, I'll show you this on a daily, on an hourly chart. So the FTSE would open in this area. So the last FTSE would open here. and it would rally, and then the US would open probably there, and it would start to fade.
Mm-hmm.
And that was going on and on and on. That was another US Open there, and it started to fade. So the US were the ones quashing it down. So what it needed was the US to follow on with the FTSE's buying furor, and that's really what happened. So the FTSE kicked to the upside. NFP came out, it kicked to the upside, and in actual fact, that might even be. No, that's the open. That's the FTSE. That's the first bar of the FTSE, and it climbed to the upside, and then NFP was this bar, I think, and after NFP it started to take off, and then Jerome Powell came out and it continued to. In fact, no, this is Jerome Powell. I think no, Jerome Powell's a little bit later in the day. This is Jerome Powell, and then it was able to hold on to its gains because of China. So that may well continue. The difficult thing really is because I don't mind kind of I'm holding on to my shorts, and the reason I'm holding on to my shorts is that we're in a downtrend, and I think it's going to come down eventually. The difficult thing is where to hedge, because hedging just at the high end here is the challenge because of where it might go, because this could go right the way back to this level here. It could go to that point. It could go to this point. So it's got a little bit of room to the upside. It could go maybe even a little bit further down, but it's still got room to the upside. But the tricky, the challenge here is when we look at some of these shorter term time frames. Let me see if I can bring this in. It's not too filthy. You look at this 4 hour, and might have changed things a little bit. So I'm going to just make this clean one more time. The 4 hour has produced 2 bars already, which are suggesting that that the first initial leg could be done. We are on a 4 hour level of resistance, so I don't really want to buy into this. This isn't my ideal spot to buy. Hedge or no hedge, it's just not really. It's not a great place to go. If I'm going to do that, then I'd prefer for it to take off, then come back, and then buy the second time round rather than buy the break. And the other issue is when I look at the momentum indicators, because the momentum indicators are a little bit getting into overbought territory. Not quite on the 4 hour, it's probably got a little bit more room to go, so we could get that pop. But looking at this, we are looking at that pretty much being the high, somewhere about 66.6. That was the last time it was here, and we'll track it back. Same thing here. It creates some, just a little bit of selling, not much, but it did come back to an area of support. That was the second time it tried, and it came back to an area of support. So this is, the point is here, not that I'd be looking at this as a place to go short, but I'd be looking at this as a place not to buy. And then if I then flip to the hourly is over here. The problem with the hourly is that this chart, this market is embedded, and the embedded scenario and the embedded situation is just impossible to read. As soon as an indicator becomes embedded, and what I mean by that is anything living above 70 or below 30, then it kind of starts to negate its power. But there is a trend line that meets as well right along here. I'm gonna have to bring my ray in because I like it. Trend line along here, which is holding, and that trend line isn't starting at the same point, but also exists on RSI. So there's no signs and signals of selling. There's no trigger. There's no way to get into this to sell. There's no trigger for downside. There's just a few kind of signals that we may well be at an area that could cause a temporary top. So that's my difficulty. That's the difficulty I've got, is that I'd like to hedge. You know, I want to hedge to protect what, you know, the trade to the downside. And this is the thing. I've taken a small amount, so I haven't taken a big trade, and I'm sticking with it because I've over the Christmas period, I think I sold a trade. I'm not sure where it was actually. It might have even been somewhere around here, and the market took off, and inevitably it came back down again. And I made money, you know, as I because I was able to wait, because I knew that this would create some, you know. And then this is the thing about making a, you know, sometimes having a bad entry. You know, it wasn't not that I intended for the market to continue higher, but there was maybe it was this area here that I saw that there was a potential selling, and it didn't really take off to the downside. So, you know, I just stuck with it, and then when the trade goes against me, rather than kind of coming out, I either choose to hedge it, so you know, sticking with the overall direction, but with a hedge to the upside, making profit there, and then taking it off, which I did in this period,
Nice.
or I stop it out and effectively have to pick other trades up. But the reason it's risky is that you've got to kind of get your you got to get the hedge on in the right place.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, this wasn't too bad because there were this wasn't overbought here. So putting selling the market here and it coming down and not quite hitting target down here and putting a hedge at the top wasn't a problem, because it was either going to collapse here or it was going to take out the high and keep going. So, you know, hedging at the top, when it came up to this this resistance point, taking the hedge off and then looking again to see if it does break higher, but not really wanting to because it's starting to get into overbought territory, and then making money on the downside. But you know, maybe the slight difference here as well is that we're now above this monthly pivot, which is potentially going to create quite a lot of support there.
Time will tell, mate, won't it? And we spoke about the hedging strategy before we went into Christmas, and
Yeah.
sounds like you continued to develop that. Good.
Yeah. Do you know, I really like it, mate. I really like it because the thing with it is that for me, even though this was one missed opportunity, but on the whole, it does actually mean that you don't miss opportunities. Because you take the trade anyway, and then just slip a little order in the opposite direction, just above, and then if the trade takes off, you're in the money. And if the trade doesn't and it goes in the opposite direction, you do have a loss, because you've got a loss of what the gap is. But then you're just kind of like, you know, waiting for it to come back in your direction. The difficulty
the loss is not substantial.
Exactly. Exactly, and then you're just waiting for dips, and you've got to really kind of be on your mettle to buy and sell the dips, which is another reason which, you know, me having a break is not a good thing for me, because I've got to stay aware of the levels on the FTSE. But the tricky thing with a hedging strategy is when you get things like, well, this is a really good example. Probably wouldn't have bought quite there, but let's say that there was a hedging strategy to buy here. It comes up, you take the sell order, but the problem is this, let's say it was somewhere around there. Problem is this hasn't come back until now. So you're gonna have deep pockets, you know.
Yes, and a big heart.
And a big heart, yeah, and a big heart, exactly. And this is a good example actually, because this one's oversold, and it just never comes back. It just keeps going and going and going. Even when the indicators start to show divergence, it still keeps dropping, and it drops again and again and again. So I'm in a bit of a difficult, a bit of a hole here. To be honest, I don't, you know, it's not my ideal scenario. I don't really want to be in this trade, but that's where I am, and that's the decision I've made. I've kind of got a plan, except for where to hedge, because I'm going to have to hedge at some point. But it's where to go. And as I say, I don't really like it here because of the overbought territory, but the fundamentals certainly aren't in my favor. The only thing right now that I was reading yesterday was that Trump was talking about the government shutdown over this Mexican war.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only thing that I've got. That's the only thing that that might spook the market a little bit. But if it doesn't, then there could be problems. And obviously the other thing that is hugely in my favour is that I'm going to switch back to clean. Is that the minor trend is in a minor chart is in a downtrend. The intermediate chart is in a downtrend, and the primary chart is in a downtrend.
And you're hit resistant. So yes.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit. It's another 60 pips, which is quite a lot. But yeah, ultimately the chart, the overall direction is in my favour. So I've got two things really to cling on to here. Number one is the overall technical movement of the market, and number two is Donald Trump coming out and helping out a little bit. So we will see.
You just had to. They finally had to concede the Senate. Yeah, that happened. I think I saw that on the news as well.
Oh, what happened there, mate?
Well, the vote that the midterms.
No, I was talking about the wall.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. But,
oh yeah.
But in addition to that, the midterms have now or come into being, if you like.
Yeah.
The result of the midterms, which was that the Democrats take control of the Senate, has now come around. So
yeah,
he's got no power anymore, and they're saying head over heels that there will be no wall.
Right. Well, that would help me out. That would help me out, because if they stand their ground, then Donald Trump is belligerent enough to shut down the US government.
Well, they're not back yet, are they?
They met last night to talk more. Let's see what they said.
I mean, it's not. I laugh, but it's not funny for those poor people.
No, I don't fully understand what's going on, if I'm honest, except for the fact that Donald Trump's throwing toys out the pram. But let's see. I don't want politics. I want world. Nice. US. Here we go. Oh, well, I've got no compromise on war with Mexico. That was on the 6th of January. Yeah, I mean, he's just kind of said this is an important battle to win. That's it, really.
Yeah, but now he can't win it. As I see it, as I understand it anyway, because the Senate will vote it down.
Right.
But that's for them, and I, as I say, don't like you. I'm no expert on American politics, that's for sure. But it would appear that wall is in extreme doubt at this point in time.
Right. Well, and that's the interesting thing, isn't it? It's the wall itself doesn't matter. It's more his reaction to not having his wall. That's the thing that matters.
Well, yes, and how he's going to handle it all.
Yeah.
And as you say, his indignation won't allow him to say, "Okay, I'm wrong," or "This is not going to happen." He'll just continue to fight and say, "Well, it's my way or the highway."
Well, this is the thing with him, isn't it? He just, I've never known a world leader, well, in fact, let's say a Western world leader, to be so uncompromising and have such a lack of diplomacy. It's amazing, absolutely incredible the way he is. It's just well, it's got to be unheard of. It's got to be unprecedented, isn't it?
There's a video going around at the moment about his humility. I'll dig it up and send it to you. It's hilarious. Quite funny. Should we look at some currencies?
Please do, mate. Yeah. I think we've had a decent chat about the foods, haven't we?
Which is now come and gone.
The which, sorry?
The Open. You're
yes. Yeah. The Open. Yeah, I am looking at the Open. I'll quickly show you a chart while you're getting ready for your currencies here.
Okay.
This is back to just the first 5 minutes of the market. It's had a bit of a refusal, but we are on a point of support here. So it just depends on people's appetite for the move to the upside. Now, will they kind of start to cut back and go, I can get a better price here if I can just take the foot off the pedal, or is there enough confidence now that that stocks are back in vogue? That's the big question. But yeah, let's have a look at some currency, see what you got, see what you're looking at, and what analysis that we can.
Well, it's very much a case of let me acclimatise and see exactly what's going on, what I've missed, what's happened since I closed my charts, which was on this day. And I've drawn a line on my charts specifically for that purpose, so I can just go back and say, well, okay, on that day, I closed my charts, and this is the euro, and that was a pretty cool day because we were still long the euro, and that was looking very, very nice at the time. It closed that day, of course, closed with a 114.46 price. The price right now at this very moment is 114.36. So we've actually gone 10 pips since the 20th of December, which is pretty cool from my perspective because it really means that nothing's happened in terms of technical change. And that's absolutely what I like, because I can then just jump straight back into the chair and say, well, all right, let's go exactly where we were. Now I'll have a look at a few things, and the one thing that did stand out more than anything was last week. And if I go to the 4-hour chart, ready, set, go, this was a heck of a day.
Yeah.
I've got no idea what happened there or why, but this was not isolated to the euro. So, nearly 200 pips in a couple of hours.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that, actually. That was to do with the dollar, wasn't it? Something did happen Wednesday. You're absolutely right. What was that?
No idea, but I can see it on the chart. Something substantial has happened. And it's, the reason I know is because I was still in the euro long. The third part of my trade was still open. The trade that I took, weeks and weeks ago. And I've got to say that the swap was getting fairly hefty on that as well. So it's not that bad that we're out of that. We can find another way in, I'm sure. But yeah, that took out my my trailing stop on the euro, so I'm no longer in that trade long. No idea what it was. I'll have a look. Obviously, if you can't come up with that answer in the next couple of hours or so, and see exactly what took place. But as I said, really, we've had absolutely no movement in terms of 10, 12 days of trading. All we've had is bouncing off support and resistance, which is absolutely perfect. That's exactly what I look for all the time. And there would have been no way to trade this short, of course. But we've hit the bottom of the range, and guess what we've done? We've bounced again, and I'll be looking for some price action here around about the DR2 level to suggest to me that we're either going to break this range or we're going back into it. So that's very, very easy for me. There's nothing to do right now until we do get to the top of there. Or if we find a rollover point here at some resistance level, and we do have one, of course, it's around about there somewhere, pretty much where price action is. If I were to get a little bit of a rollover point, so I don't know, a little 30-minute trade line going through here, and I could get a bounce off it to trade back to the pivots, I'd be happy to do that. And that's probably my focus, if any, on the euro today until we get to this point. Then I'll start to get interested again. Now, the pound, if we have a look at the pound, again, going back to the 20th of December, which is when I closed my charts, and we had a price that closed on that day of 126.58. We opened this morning at 126.95, so about 37 pips away, and we've appreciated about Oh, another 10 pips or so, is it? A bit more than that. Why won't that work? Stay there. No more than that. About 25 pips to the good so far today. So again, there's not a whole lot of change, but there is a change. And the change is this. We've come back into the range. Again, there's this crazy day last week. Got no idea what that was all about again. But you can see that we rejected this level very, very quickly once we got down there. So I'm thinking somebody's made an announcement of some kind, or there was I doubt there would be a news event, but somebody said something to drive the market down here, and it's very, very quickly been dismissed. And I would have suggested at that time there's probably not much liquidity in the market, and therefore, big move and a big retracement very, very quickly. No surprises. That's the kind of thing that you do expect when there's poor liquidity in the market, and you do get funny and weird scenarios like that. But I guess all that's done is it's held us down for a period of time, and I'm more than happy with that. What I do see here is the opportunity to trade this back to the top. We've not only broken the bottom of this range, we've come back into it and retested it through the pivots. If I was looking at that 2 days ago, two and nearly 3 days ago, there's probably a trade there. It's a big, big candle though. But I'm taking particular notice of that we have come back into the range. We've come back, tested the pivots again, and now this big bar here on the back of this bullish engulfing bar is telling me that there's a little bit of upside in this cross. This is cable. So I am looking for longs at this point in time. Let me take a look at that from a possibility point of view. Well, not really, not at this level. And the reason for that is we're a little bit overextended on this bar here. I'd like to see some pullback on that. There's nothing there at the moment. Daily pivots smothering the monthly pivot there as well. I'd really like to see that come back to here, and then I'd look for an entry long on cable. So today, can I trade it back to the pivots is going to be the question. And as always, the answer is maybe. We've just got to have a look and see. There's nothing there that's exciting me. I've got to say that.
Yeah. What about that little channel in there? Would that be concerning in any way?
This one, the one up.
No. Actually, just yeah. That with the high as well. It looks like is it a rising wedge, or is it a ascending triangle? There's something going on, isn't there?
Yeah, I think
there's a pattern in there somewhere.
I don't like it, and the reason I don't like it is the size of the bars. 15, 16 pip candle is probably, there's one here that's bigger, but the rest of it's just garbage. There's really no market here at all.
Yeah.
And the overriding factor right now are these two bars. So retracement here is, I'm desperate for retracement so I can actually take advantage of this. I think this is a very, very strong bullish sign, and to trade this short at the moment, I don't think is really a wise thing to do. Or maybe there's something coming through here.
That looks like a long.
Yeah, well, why I'm looking at that is it's a long at the moment, but if we can get a close below and then a retest with the bull bar, then it becomes very sensible for me to trade this short off the bull bar if we get one.
Yeah,
but we've got to get it closed below the line first, and then a response. Then I'll look for the short. But it'll only be a very, very short term one, and even so, entry's probably about there somewhere. We've got plenty of room for profit. We can get 30. We can probably get 30 pips out of that.
That's pretty nice, yeah.
With a risk of maybe half that, so that could be okay.
Yeah, and obviously we're kind of back in the mire of Brexit right up until March 29th. So we got another
March 20. What happened to January 14?
January 14 is the vote. for Theresa May. You know, will her deal get passed through Parliament? That's the first and significant event that's going to happen.
Yes.
You know, she's still struggling. The issue that Theresa May has got is that there is a growing number of MPs that are now looking for a no deal Brexit. You know, they're happy and comfortable with a no deal Brexit. So because that's where she's at, she's got to convince those guys and convince the other guys that know that if things don't get passed through, then the chance of a second referendum also increases. So you know, her deal is probably, you know, it would probably be doomed anyway. I don't know that for sure, but I think it would probably be doomed anyway, no matter pretty much what she brought back. You know, unless she brought back that we're still, you know, that we've left the EU but we've got all the same terms. I don't think she would get enough support from either side for you know, for her to actually have any success with her particular deal. She does seem to be going back to the EU to trying to get a little bit more sway for, you know, some of the other people in Parliament, but I think people feel a little bit stitched up by her. You know, she's sort of like, it's all a lot of cloak and mirrors going on, and that's the big issue, is that I'm not really sure whether anybody really would trust what she did come back with. If she said, look, I've got more concessions, you guys are going to get more of a say, I think they'd be like, will we though? You know, are we going to get a say? Because you kind of said that already, and that didn't happen. So you know, how can we trust you now? What's the difference now than was before? So I don't think that's going to get
pulled a few rabbits out of the hat already.
Do you know, the interesting thing about it is that all she's really done is had a stay of execution up until this point. She has, but the rabbit she's pulled out the hat really is to stay in office. That's the only rabbit she's really pulled out the hat. And when we consider why, there's multiple reasons that that people would not want to oust Theresa May. The Conservatives wouldn't want to oust her on the whole, because they know that they remain in power and they won't be a general election. And I think there's probably concern that Jeremy Corbyn would beat her if it was a fist fight to the death. And the other thing is, I'm not sure whether anybody really wants the gig, you know, at this particular time. You know, it's a difficult job, isn't it? Because maybe, you know, someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg, and you're probably not aware of him because he's a backbencher, but he's become such a prominent player recently. Somebody like him may well be man enough to take it on, because he's just an out-and-out Brexiteer. You know, he's not into any deal whatsoever. He's like, he wants a deal, but he's like, look, if there's no deal, there's no deal. That's it. They either come on our terms, or it's that you know, all bets are off. So so he's maybe one player that might want the job, but he is a backbencher, as I said, and probably would not get enough support. And the rest of the Tory party probably know that as well. He's got some strange views. Not strange, that's unfair. He's got some traditional views. You know, he doesn't believe in gay marriage. He doesn't believe in abortion. You know, no matter what the circumstance. And I think that is probably some of the reason that the Tories feel a little bit uncomfortable about him. You know, he's a very able and clever guy. And I don't know if you remember in Bali, but I was saying he was the one who brought the vote of no confidence. It was him who triggered it.
Right. Yep.
And I said in Bali, he's a very, very intelligent and able politician, and he would not bring this vote of no confidence unless he thought he could win. You know, subsequently he didn't win, but he did think he was going to win, and that's the kind of man he is. He's quite calculated. He's very, very clever, an old Etonian, and he talks like an old Etonian. But as I say, he's got these views that He may be able to kind of talk himself around. He does seem to be able to talk himself around by saying that these are not the views of the Conservative Party and they won't be part of policy, but they are his own particular views. So it may well stand against him. I mean, it's not like he's running for power now, so you know, there's no case to be made for the job. But you know, him, maybe Boris might be another one who would want the job. But his stock has significantly depreciated. You know, he's not anywhere near as popular a politician or a man as he was before
Haven't
this.
heard much from him.
No, well, he's kept a very low profile, and again, you know, Boris Johnson is another very calculated and clever guy, but he's still very clumsy. You know, he does put his foot in it a lot. He almost can't help himself, and that's the interesting thing about him. It's almost better for him to come out and say nothing, and that's the better way for, you know, for him to kind of like have a bit of popularity, because when he does come out and say something, it's usually something that is going to get people into, you know, including him, a fair bit of trouble. So yeah, we haven't heard much from him, and you know, I find that quite interesting in itself as well.
Well, calm before the storm, maybe.
Well,
just
this
low
is the thing. I mean,
profile,
you know,
whilst they all sorted out cat and dog style.
yeah,
And you've come in over the top, yeah.
and this is the thing, isn't it? It's this isn't just kind of you know, some you know, comedic kind of news filling item. This is really important stuff for the currency, and that's the only reason I talk about it.
Yeah.
Is that this is for the pound. So where does that leave us? Does that leave us into a buying area until the 16th, until the vote, and then, you know, see what happens?
Look, I've kind of got that attitude, but not based on really Brexit, based on what I'm seeing on the charts. I mean,
right.
This is a very significant level that's been rejected once again.
Yeah.
And you know, if you look across here, this level is, you know, very, very, very significant. It's around about 127, if I recall. Yeah, very, very close to 127. So what I'm thinking is, and I guess up until that time, we're going to see some stability, although we haven't at all in the last 3 weeks. But that's Christmas, you know. A lot can happen over Christmas without anything happening. If you understand what I'm saying, it can be very volatile.
Yeah.
But really, not a lot has taken place, as I pointed out before. You know, we're still very much in the same area that we were prior to Christmas.
And as you say, the lack of liquidity is something that we have to battle against with that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a thing. You know, it's an absolute thing. And you know, if you're trading, in particular, last week, first week of the year, that's the kind of thing that can happen, and it's very, very difficult on a small time frame to survive that. But this looks very juicy, I've got to say. You know, it's a big double bottom. It's at a very significant level, I'll call it. I was going to say sensitive level, but it's more significant than sensitive. And really, the only thing I can see here is upside, and where that fits in terms of the Brexit thing. I'm not too sure, to be fair, but I'm only looking for longs, and until I get something that's fundamental that drives it down, then I'm gonna remain that way. Yeah. Look, coming into the first or the second week of the year as we are now, I won't be trading at full strength, I've got to say, but to me this looks as good as an opportunity as I think we're going to find in the first or second week of January. So I'm very, very keen on it and looking for just the opportunity to get in. That's all I'm looking for. It may not come. It just may continue to take off because there's no real strong resistance ahead of it. There's a level here, this white line, no question. And if we get a bounce off that, happy days. But yeah, I'm definitely bullish across and will remain that way until something changes. Now, sorry, mate. Yep.
I was going to ask, do you look at any other pound crosses, or is it just pound dollar that you look at? Ever look at like pound yen or euro pound or anything?
Absolutely, I do. Pound yen and pound Aussie.
Yeah.
I've taken a liking for in the last little bit. And the reason for that is because they seem to be on different tracks for different reasons. The pound, obviously, because of Brexit, and the Aussie because of their reluctance to raise interest rates, the correlation with China that is very, very strong, and that's moving for a different reason as well. So if you can combine the downside of the Aussie and the potential upside of the pound, there's probably an opportunity there, and I'll have a look at that. I'll have a look at that as well, because this is quite compelling to me as well, because we're just coming down to the monthly pivot. I think it's an excellent place for this to bounce. That's pound Aussie. So I'll definitely be looking at that. And speaking of the Aussie, it's also one that had an incredible Wednesday of last week. Was it Wednesday?
It did.
But if once again, going back to my 20th of December, which is when I stopped trading, that day closed here. That day closed right there. And, well, there, sorry. And look where today opened. It's exactly the same level. So these things are perfect for me, because really I haven't missed anything in terms of technicals. The market hasn't changed. We haven't broken any trends that I was looking at. We haven't broken out of any ranges that I've been looking at. Yes, we have. We've had a false break, but essentially we're back where we were, and that's great. As I look at this chart, there's no way I could possibly buy this at the moment, but there's absolutely a potential here to sell it, maybe off the monthly pivot, and I'll be looking at that.
What would you want to see there?
Yeah, smaller time frame. I just want to see the monthly pivot tested, really. I have a look at where the daily pivot is. So yeah, look, yeah, great opportunity here, I would have thought, on the smaller time frames. Let me see if I can pick that up anyway.
Just enough resistance there on a short time frame. I mean, what kind of indication would you need?
Well, I'll be looking for a trend line in particular. I don't really see one that suits me, because in terms of a target, yes, perfect.
Yep.
But in terms of an entry, which is what I'm looking for off trend lines, I don't see any opportunity here at all, sadly, at this point in time. So I might have to drill down into the smaller time frames, which is, of course, is what I not like to do anyway. And I'll be looking at something, I guess, across here.
Yeah.
And, well, pretty much there it is right now. I've got it. But I've also got some support here I need to take interest in. Let me see what I got. That might be okay. There you go. We've got our first trade for the week and the year.
So with that,
yep,
that looks to me quite similar in so many ways, including that Wednesday price action, as we were just looking at with the pound. Similar kind of range that you've got up there, and that's the area that I was talking about with the pound.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. If you take note of this, we've got a nice little trend line coming through here. It's what I call a Jeff trade line, actually, because it's very much intraday, and it's very much not a swing, if you like. These are not swings. You could probably call this one a swing, but it's a low, definitely. That's a low, definitely. And so is probably that before this candle was formed.
So why not a swing? Why wouldn't you label that a swing?
Okay, because a swing for mine is something that moves a percentage of the previous move. So if this move here is, let's say, 70 pips, I'll probably want to see a third of that.
Yeah.
a third to a half of that before it becomes a swing for mine.
Yeah.
And this is not a swing in any way, shape, or form for me. It's consolidation after a move, and that's all it is. But by my rules, if I've got two lows that can be drawn on a chart, then I've got the beginning of a trend line.
Right.
And once I've got that, I can use this trend line to trade. So when I see this happen, probably particularly after that's a bit of a bear signal. Then I see this. I think, okay, well, we've had a crack. We've had a second crack. If we have a third crack, it'll probably be even better than the first two. And we're now in a time of day where we've got people trading rather than here where we've really got not a lot of people trading. So we're going to have liquidity here, potential liquidity. It's a Monday as well, so you've got to throw that into the equation. We've got this nice resistance level ahead of us, and to me, this is the catch point. At the moment, it's the catch point. So if there is acceleration to the downside, it should come through this level, and it'll have a potential stop here. It'll certainly fight here. Price will fight here, but the theory from my perspective is if we get to that level, we bank, and anything after that becomes nice profit. So I'm relying on that level to give me profit. So that's my bank level. Okay.
So I've got one more question on that. Yeah.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you draw your line from the first red bar? The first red bar where price rejected after the two extensions.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, because it's not a high or a low. I need to have a high or a low.
Wouldn't you consider that? Isn't that a low?
This here?
Yeah.
No. A low for me is a candle whose lowest point has not been beaten by two candles either side of it. So in other words, it is the lowest point in three candles, both sides.
Oh, okay. So
it's like a swing, but until I've got that, something like this, that's a swing. That's arguably one, but
you see,
it has to be a low or a high.
I think that little bit, those little bits of detail, are just gold. That's incredibly important to get a definition like that of a low from a kind of from a senior trader, from an experienced trader, to get a definition of a low like that, because I think a lot of confusion can come in with the term swing. And what is a low, and the fact that you've kind of defined it that you've got an absolute way of defining it. It's not just the lowest bar.
Yeah, I think when I learned that.
Yeah, where's that?
That was in 2008.
Yeah.
2008, 2007, 2007, maybe even 2006. Late 2006, December 2006. There you go. That's when I did my first technical analysis course.
Right.
So that's how I learned what a low and what a high is. They were called swings at that time. So this is a swing low. This is a swing high. I have a further definition that says that's not a swing. That's a low. That's a high, but it's not a swing for mine.
Yeah.
So yes.
And those bars around it.
Guess.
Yeah. You're just looking for the two bars around it to define whether it was the low or not.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. I like it.
So I'm going to place that order. Let's do that, shall we? Aussie. And we're going short below that bar at 71.37, I'm going to call that. $71.37. And our stop loss will be, I'm now going to put it above this candle. at 71.41. Let's call it 71.42 actually. Let's call it, what's the spread? 41, about 1, nearly 2. We're going to call it 71.43. So I want to include the spreads in that. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Wrong box. 71.43. And what will we use? We'll use a lot. Oh, you dog. I hate it when that happens. 71.22, did I say?
71.43. Sorry, mate, I didn't remember the lowest one.
Sure. Well, it should have been. If it wasn't, it should have been. 71.22 is the entry, and we'll place that. Okay, so entry is here. 71.22. Why won't that stay there? There we go. And the stop loss is at 71.43. Bang on. Okay. Now we will take profit here. Above that little bar there, I think. Which will be get up. Yeah, about 9 pips. We'll take profit. Profit number 1, and we'll get out here just above the daily pivot at that level there. Get rid of that. $70.83-ish. There we go. So anybody who wants to follow that, the entry level is there, 71.22. The stop loss is at 71.43. First take profit will be at 71.12. And the target is 70.83. There we go. Aussie short.
Nice. Aussie short. So we're looking for a risk-off day today, essentially.
Yeah, look, I'd really like to see the monthly pivot tested before this trade is entered, and the reason for that is it takes that out of the equation.
Yeah,
because that's still in the equation.
Yeah.
So
it's a psychological level, isn't it?
Definitely, I'll be looking at that throughout the day, and if I find a better entry than this, then I'll probably take that as well. Now, how is that likely to happen? Yeah, I'd probably need to see maybe using this low if it becomes a low. So later in the day, you know, around this area here, if we found something similar to this, or, you know, a couple of low test bars or something like that, that makes that trade even better. So I'm more than happy to look for that as well. Now let's go back to the pound and see the difference, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. So the difference is, going back to my definition, I've got a low here, but I don't have any other lows. You see what I mean?
Yes.
That's not a low yet.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't even had one candle close. So I simply can't draw that as a trend line. So the only trend line I can draw is this one here, going through a high,
Yeah.
and wait for that to break and retest.
Yeah.
Then I get the entry.
So if this current bar that we're on actually broke the doji there, then would you then consider that the low?
Well, no, because it's still not a low. I would have 2 candles to the left, but I won't have 2 candles to the right. But it doesn't need to be a low anymore because I'm trading this trend line.
Yeah.
There is no trend line through here, but I'll be trading this one, and I'll be trading this one as a false break. So, just as we see a false break of the weekly pivot here, I'll be looking for that to be a false break of the trend line.
So with the previous, so back to that kind of area I was speaking about before on the Aussie, with the previous bearish bar, no, on the pound, we still look at the pound, same same thing. Where you drew your trend line from, if you take it back to the previous one, the reason you can't consider that a low is because of the green bar to the left of it.
Which one, mate? Sorry.
So you drew you started your trend line from
here.
From there, yeah. You take it back to the previous red bar, not the previous, but the extension, 2 bars of green extension. Yeah, and then one. There. You can't consider that a low because of the green bar to the left of it.
That's right.
Right.
Yep. Very clear definition. Two bars either side. If I don't have that, I don't have a low.
So if that red bar, if that red bar was the first one, and then you had like a hammer, then you could consider the hammer the low.
A hammer where?
Straight out, instead of there being a red bar followed by a green bar. So you got the 2 bars of extension, red bar, and then if the green bar, instead of being a green bar, the next one along was a hammer.
Giving us bar was a hammer.
Yeah. Then you could consider that hammer a low because the red bar to the left of it is valid.
No.
Oh.
I wish I had a pen. It would make things a lot easier.
Yeah, it would make things a bit easier, wouldn't it?
So let's go to the definition of a low again. Arrows. Where are arrows? Here. Arrow down. So the definition of a low is, it need to be up, not down, didn't it? Okay. Let me try that again. So that bar there.
Yeah.
Why is that doing that? I don't know. Anyway, has 1 candle and 2 candles to the left of it.
Oh,
whose low did not go lower than the candle.
Yeah.
And 2 bars to the right, whose low did not go lower than the candle.
Oh, okay. So you need 2 bars.
Yeah.
You can't just have one either side.
No.
Okay.
So to me, that makes it definitive. If you've got 1 either side, I don't know that that's had time to do its thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's made its mark on the chart until we've got a second bar. And if you were using this one here, for instance, as a high, and you've got 2 bars that can't get back above here, you're starting to think, well, okay, they've had two attempts to take out this high. They're probably not going to do that anytime soon, and therefore the market falls away. No matter how far, this is a very weak area because we've had these 2 strong bars here. You've got to be thinking consolidation at this point. But once you've got that high, if you can't beat it in 2 bars, then the likelihood is you're really not going to beat it anytime soon. And for that reason, I think it's a pretty good plan. if the market's moving, in equilibrium, if I can put it that way. So we've got liquidity. Once we've got liquidity, I think we've got a very strong case for 2 bars either side. And if you go, back through the charts, you'll find that 2 bars either side is, I think, a stronger signal that the market is turning than is one. And I think for that reason, the swings are far more prominent and far more useful if they're swings. If they're only lows and highs in areas like this, they're far less powerful, in my humble opinion. They don't have a lot of strength to them. And that's why on the Aussie at the moment, if I'm thinking, okay, I've got 2 lows, and I have, how strong are they? Then they're not strong at all, because this is consolidation. And that's why I wouldn't be looking to put a heck of a lot of money on this.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of contextual thing that I'm looking at all the time. Stronger the bars, the stronger the swing's likely to be.
Yeah.
And if you've got 2 either side, I think it's stronger again. And
agreed.
I've lived with that definition for 11 years, 12 years.
So you're just looking for just a bit more confirmation. I mean, obviously, there is, I suppose, an argument for there not being anything either side, and there's an argument for being one either side, or maybe even an argument for 3.
Indeed, I have no problem with that either. Yeah, I don't use it as a trading signal in any way, shape, or form, I suppose. But well, at the end of the day, I suppose I do, because it's giving me a point on the chart where I can trade. That's what it's doing.
Yeah.
And I'm more than comfortable with that.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Like it.
So we've covered the 3 majors.
Yes.
And that's why I can't. There now, that bar's good. All we need now is a bull bar to come back across the trade line.
Nice.
Trend line.
Yeah.
And we'll be okay. The one thing here, of course, that can and does happen is that you miss the trade completely because you didn't get a signal, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, there's no point in trading that way, is there? I mean, we know that.
No, that's just guesswork,
Yeah.
We've got an idea, but unless we've got something to back that idea up, then we might as well play tiddlywinks.
Yeah. Interesting, really, what's happening, I think, in the market today. We've got FTSE 100 still clinging on to those gains. We've got Aussie really quite high, but you're looking for just a little bit lower. I think I'm looking for the same with the FTSE. And I think the other 2 charts that are worth mentioning, obviously after you've completed your analysis of what you're looking at, but I think WTI and also gold, I think, are both charts that we should maybe just have a little squint at some point.
Yeah, look, they are interesting, actually, and they're kind of bucking the trend. And the trend that I was talking about before is this white line trend that I've put on my charts, where we've seen very, very little happen in these currencies. But if you go to those charts, and we will in a tick, I'll just very, very briefly go through these 4 charts here, which are also bucking the trend, because the yen has really come into prominence over Christmas by the look of it. It's really shone, and that goes with the risk off mentality. Obviously, again, similar scenario last week, but the trajectory on anything against the yen seems to be very much down. The euro, the Aussie, and the dollar in particular. Look at that.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. So and I think this probably goes along with the stock markets as well, that have now come back a little bit, as you said, and they now look to be more risk on than risk off. But we've been in a very, very big risk off scenarios. If you look at dollar yen in particular, that's massive. That's moved. since it opened on the 20th, which is the one I've been using, and went 700 odd pips.
Jeez. And this is the challenge, isn't it? I mean, you know, how we pick our eventual turning points in a market is as I say, it's a huge challenge, and that's really, you know, a lot of the time what we're trying to do, you know, especially if you are a swing trader.
Yeah, look, this one's very clear. I'll have to go a little bit wider. You know, put your trend line where you like. But it smashed through them. And very, very difficult to trade because it approached, but as soon as it approached, it just went bang. There was no pullback. There was no test. There was no nothing until here.
Yeah.
And by the time you're here, you're thinking, okay, maybe this is a good place to get in, and maybe it was. But you know, you've gone a fair way at that point. So very interesting.
And this is where hedging becomes very, very difficult, doesn't it? You know, as a strategy, you get into that, you're going to be waiting a long time before that price comes back to where you entered.
You are, but I wonder if what day is that? Is that Christmas Eve? No, it's Boxing Day. So it's the day after Christmas. And I'm wondering if this happens, if that's not the day after Christmas. I'm wondering if we get that bigger move, you know, if there's full liquidity in the market, do we get that bigger move? And I think the answer is I don't think so. But you know, the fact is it did. And if you're in from here, happy days.
Yeah. And again, you know, I think another interesting question is what is the instrument of the year? Because last year we saw Bitcoin completely do an about turn when it hit January. Looks like January is also bringing in an about turn for maybe some of these markets as well. What is the instrument of the year?
Well, let's go back to where you were talking about before. And you know, if it's not stocks, it's gold's done extremely well.
Yeah,
and
I think PH was in that.
Yeah, look, I think a few of the guys were actually.
I remember him picking it. He picked it out, and I was like, "Geez, man, you're getting in really high there," and it took off.
Yeah, and again, it's bucking that trend that I was talking about before, where we on the 20th of, where's the 20th here? Is that day we just reached the top of this range, or the top of the channel on the 20th, and that's where everything started to explode again. Had a little bit of retracement, and then bang, away she went. So, pardon me, it's definitely in a different area than it was on the 20th when I stopped trading. Where it goes from here, of course, is the next question. We are at somewhat of a resistance level, and we're at we're at 1300 as well, or almost at 1300. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I don't know that gold would be the one I'd be looking at, but I would be looking at this one. As you said, oil. I think oil's very, very interesting. And be interested to see tomorrow when we have our chat in the evening TTR, what Julian's thoughts are on oil.
Yeah.
He's very much a student of that sector. And if I look at this chart, I'm thinking the level that we're currently at is probably as good a turning point as you'll see on this chart. Maybe I'll take it back. There is no better turning point on this chart from a support point of view than this level here, which is 41.80.85.
Yeah.
And we seem to have bounced off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a bull here. I've got to see something that makes me or gets me interested, but I think that comes in now we've had the break of the monthly pivot, daily pivot, weekly pivot. If we can pull back here and especially if we go through this level. If we go here, find the resistance, pull back, or in your chart patterns, you'd like to see this rally to here, then pull back to here.
Well, actually, yeah, there's a longer term trend line that I was looking at with gold, which
oil.
Sorry, oil. Sorry, I am on the same page as you. 1 second, I will show you what I mean.
Okay.
This is my. Oops. Yeah, this is my oil chart here. I'll just grab this screen.
Do you watch Brent or WTI?
Well, WTI, but I think they're pretty much the same, aren't they? I think that the thing. What were you just looking at?
Yeah, WTI.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So this is the area for me, and it's difficult to know where to draw this, but it could be here. This is a monthly chart. Or it could even be here. Make sure that's lined up properly. Yeah, that is lined up properly. I probably wouldn't use that one actually because that's already crossed over quite a lot. But this one would be the area. So I guess that would lead us pretty close to that that horizontal level as well. Might even get swept away, depending on how long it took to get up there. But that's what I'm looking at, the fact that we've broken that primary trend line. And for me, oil has got some issues until we really get back above this point. But really, this point, it was particularly when we bring this particular line in as well. So I think if we get above here, then yes, I will be a bull, a true bull. But until then, I think that there's going to be quite a lot of volatility with oil, and I think that anything that moves to the upside may be perceived as a relief rally, and then it could be look out again until we get some genuine kind of reversal pattern, which it looks very similar to what we were looking at with what's going on with the FTSE. If I again bring this up here. This would be something that I would look for if I was trading this on a primary chart. Sorry, not a primary chart, on a minor chart, i.e. the daily. If I saw that, then I'd feel a bit more comfortable about oil, and I'd be kind of comfortable about trying to pick it up somewhere in this particular area down here, and that would be my preference, to try and pick it up down there somewhere.
That looks like your better entry to me.
Yeah, that looks about right, and that's going to take a little while. I'd want oil to prove itself. And interestingly, Bitcoin, just to kind of quickly flash on it, because Bitcoin seems to be also something which seems to dictate or indicates some risk on. And I think Bitcoin's interesting because Bitcoin has given us that inverted head and shoulders, and I think we could get a rally in the cryptos as well, starting this year. Whether they end up being that significant, whether cryptos do end up being a bit of a misnomer, is a different question entirely. Because to my mind, getting back up here is going to be a struggle. But having a little bit of confidence to go back and retest some of these levels, I think is more than achievable. So I think Bitcoin's a potential buy as well right now.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, trading Bitcoin is something that I'd have to ease into because it's not something that I do trade. But I look at it because my brother's heavily invested in cryptocurrencies. So I do look at the price action of these cryptocurrencies, and what I'm seeing is a potential turnaround. I mean, he's hoping that it's going to get up to a much more significant level than I would be comfortable calling. But I do think that there's a potential for Bitcoin and its brothers to have a rally from this point.
Okay, let's keep our eye on it. Should we? Where are you getting that chart from? You're not on.
No.
Is it available on this thing? I don't know.
No, it's not. I probably shouldn't really show it, but I'm sure there are some people that are out there, you know, trading Bitcoin. But no, I don't, unfortunately.
Actually, I've got a funny feeling that it will become part of our trading throughout the year, because I think Paul B was trading it and said it was quite easy to trade.
It was, yeah, he did. He had an amazing run at it, actually, Bitcoin. He was telling me that it's a really clean chart. Just quickly, just showing the FTSE after the first hour, we shut down right on top of that monthly pivot. Interesting here that actually, even though we have shut down just around that monthly pivot, the shorter term timeframes have actually created something of a lower high here. No, I don't know where this area necessarily is, but you know, and inevitably this monthly pivot will certainly provide some support here, and as we're already seeing, but will it provide the support that the bulls need for it to continue to the upside? And this is filling me with some cheer here, I have to say.
Good.
We need to take this monthly pivot out, and it's a difficult one, this, because you know the monthly pivot is such a strong level. That this could you know be the catalyst that the FTSE needs, but the fact that we've gone past the first hour and there's some significant weakness in the market says to me that the first half of the day will remain tepid at best for the bulls, and but potentially weak, you know, at worst for them. And I think we could actually get some decent movement down to the downside here. As I say, I won't be over egging this. I think you know, I'd like just to get out, but if I can get it down to the DP, then I'm quite nicely in profit. Not really the price that I would aim for if I'd managed to get a decent entry. I think that, you know, the actual area that we should be aiming for with this would actually be all the way down to the weekly pivot. You know, decent looking area of support there, and all the way down to the weekly pivot would be a really good good area to try and take full profit. But I'm not going to mess about with this. If it comes down to the daily pivot, I'll give it a little bit of time. You know, see if it can crash through. But if it starts to meander around there, then I'll be taking everything off the table.
Here's an exercise for us overnight as homework. Let's go back for 5 or 10 years and see how strong the monthly pivot is in January.
Oh, nice! I like that. I like that a lot.
And it got smashed last January. If you have a look at last January, it just got pummeled.
Monthly pivot last January, so 2017. Now I'm on a daily chart here. 2017 is that coming? There he is. Oh no, it's not. It's locked. 2017.
Oh, sorry, 2018. Last year I was talking about. Not.
Oh, of course, we're in 2018, aren't we? Well, 2017. It got smashed as well, actually, on the FTSE. Yeah, it got smashed in 2018, in January. 2017. 2018 on the FTSE was... Oh, was I just looking at 2018? Oh, no, this is 2018. Didn't even get seen in 2000. No, sorry, that was 2018. Yeah, 2018 it got smashed to the downside. 2017, I'm doing my homework early. It got didn't even get seen in 2017, but that's because the market was so strong.
It's not telling me that it's a very strong figure in the first month of the year.
No, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. I mean, you know, the other thing about this as well is that when we bring this back to the clean charts and start looking at these 4-hour candles, the 4-hour candles are still suggesting that there's some weakness up here. You know, these aren't particularly joyful. So, so I think a pullback is on the cards, and I don't need a lot. I'm actually only around about What's that? 18. No, I'm actually about 10 pips away from actually being profitable here. So, so I'm not too far away now, and I would just I'm gonna hold on because I don't think the charts are except for the monthly pivot. There's the charts don't actually suggest a decent rally from this particular point. So I think hanging on here is going to be the right thing to do.
Let's hope that when we come back tomorrow, that's down around those lower levels, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, I don't actually need a lot now. I'm only looking for I think 13 pips to make a decent amount of money, I think. So I'm not too far away, and when we consider that the first hour has given us 40 pips, then to only need another 10 to 15 over the course of the day in the same direction is not too concerning at this particular point, as I say. So the issue will be if we're still here by US Open, because the US Open does tend to have a different complexion than the UK. So if this is still here by the time the US Open happens, I may well just take the trade off the table, because I don't really want to have to take a hit, but I will take a hit. I prefer to take a hit and be thankful that we didn't take this area out and go too far. So I will watch it as we go. Now, we didn't check Forex Factory live on air, but I did check it in the background. And oh, brilliant. Well, there's nothing doing really, is there, apart from some ISM later on. So that's that particular number may help or hinder the markets, depending on what the number is. But yeah, let's just hope that the FTSE continues to drag down, at least for the start of this session today.
All right, mate, and that the Aussie hits monthly pivot and races its way down to daily pivot. That'd be good.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's have a decent opening day. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it, mate?
Always nice.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, let's push off, and I will see you tomorrow morning, same time, same back channel.
All right, mate. Happy days. Have a good one.
You too, mate. See you later, guys.